Please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Claudia Tortiglione. I am a staff researcher at the Institute of Cybernetics of Naples, in Pozzuoli to be exactly, and I work as a permanent researcher since 2001.
Could you introduce your work and area of research?
Okay, I work in developmental biology and also in the development of new technologies to interfere with, to probe biological function using nanotechnological tools. So basically in my lab there are different research lines, and one is more for basic biological studies like developmental biology, and I use a small animal called Hydra vulgaris, which is a freshwater polyp. And I study developmental biology and also a new method to interfere with gene function, so molecular biology basically. And other research that I lead in my lab is is related to nanotechnology. So basically, in collaboration with other chemists, we test on Hydra new nanotools. So basically, nanoparticles to interfere with biological function. And nanoparticles are made of different materials, and we can use nanoparticles to interfere with biological function, but also to deliver bioactive molecules. And that's the general area of interest.
Yes, and could you tell me, was it so exciting about your research work?
I think that is very exciting, this latter part of my work. Anytime a group who synthesize nanoparticles asked me to test these nanoparticles, new events come up. So basically, we use the quantum dots, which are colloidal semiconductor nanoparticles, which are highly fluorescent. We just use these nanoparticles to do cell tracking on Hydra, and that was exciting because we could really see cell migration at with a high resolution and by fluorescence microscopy. And that was with the cadmium selenide nanoparticles. But then we moved and we used silica nanoparticles, and in this latter case we observed toxicity. So we observed another behavior. So what is exciting is that anytime I change the chemical composition of the nanoparticles, or we slightly change the size, the surface, and also the dimension, the animals can respond in different ways. And this makes any experiment different from the previous one, and can give a very unexpected result. And this means that it's very important to understand the interaction of bio and non-bio. So when you treat a living animals with an inorganic nanoparticles, the animal can respond in a very new way, and that's this make all research very interesting, not only for us, so not only for Hydra, but because Hydra is a eukaryotic animals, and is the most important pathway are conserved through the animal evolution. So what we understand in Hydra is conserved with a high probability also in more complex animals like rats, or even in less complex animals system like cell culture. So what is important is to understand how a living system can respond to new nanomaterials, which is only recently has been synthesized. And so it's important to understand the response of living animals to nanomaterials.
And therefore, what are the potential application of your research?
Well, there are many applications. In biological imaging, first of all, because some nanoparticles are used for cell tracking, so for biological imaging. Some nanoparticles can be really highly fluorescent and they are very resistant to photobleaching, and so you can observe under UV excitation for ages, and so they are really unique biological probes. Another application is drug delivery. So we can use nanoparticles to deliver bioactive molecules, which can be antibody, and so you can target in a very specific way a particular cell type, or you can use drugs. And so basically we develop new way to deliver to specific cell type drugs. So that is mainly the most important application that we are developing.
Since when you are interested in science? What provoked your interest in science?
I was first interested in science when I was at the secondary school. I had a very nice teacher in biology, and so I really liked the scientific and biology in a broad term. But then, after the secondary school, I wanted to go to medicine at university, and that year I had to take the text before, and I was very tired that summer. So I said, well, because the first year of medicine is really equal to the first year of biology, I said I do biology for the first year and then I moved to medicine. Instead, this never happened, because when I was studying an exam called histology, I was really fascinated by the cell morphology, the DNA, and the molecular biology in particular. So I thought that I wanted to study the molecular biology and what makes the cells doing everything, so the DNA, RNA, transcription, all these elements, rather than focusing on pathology, because medicine could be really, studying the pathology. And I was looking on the book of dermatology, and I was seeing all these not nice pictures. So I said I would rather prefer to do the molecular biology studies. And so since then I was very focused, and also my specialization was in molecular biology. So.
And how was the transition from a student to a researcher? It was easy or challenging to change from a student to a professional way?
It was easy for me because the last year of the university in biology I asked to do an experimental thesis, and I did it at the National Research Council in a very prestigious institute, which is a Genetic and Biophysics Institute in Naples, from Siena. And I was very fascinated. I was studying Drosophila molecular biology. And so after my graduation, I got a fellowship, a one-year fellowship. And so I had many fellowships, one after the other, and also international experience abroad. And so since then, I moved quite a lot. I changed the research interest, and so I was a sort of driven to go and to become a researcher. So because since the end of my study, I had so many fellowships that I was a sort of already into a street, and the natural end of this street was become a researcher.
And so
I was lucky.
Okay, so I think you have your student dreams fulfilled.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And I was lucky because at 31 years old I got a permanent position. So nowadays it's quite early to get this position because most of my colleagues found problems.
What is most challenging in your profession?
My profession as a researcher, the challenging is to produce publication and to apply and to get funded. That's the most challenging of my profession, as there are no national grants and CNR doesn't ensure research money. So basically we have to produce a lot. We have to publish, to publish our results, and we also have to apply always. We have to write project to apply for funds. Otherwise, it's very difficult to perform my research as a molecular biologist, and also in the nanoscience we need a lot of consumable, a lot of research money, apart from personal, so apart from student or postdoc position. But what we really need are money to perform research, and that's why we have continuously apply, and we have to write project and thinking and learning all the time.
Could you tell me something about your international experience? Are there colleagues abroad that are interested in your research and so on?
Yes, I have to say that I have more contact in Europe than in Italy. I'm at the moment in a frame of a European project, and we are at the third year, and I had a really brilliant experience. So I work every day with I say every day because we exchange thousands of emails to coordinate our results and to plan future activities. So I work with Spanish, Portuguese, English and German people. So not every day, but really we exchange a lot. We have a meeting every 6 months, we have a joint meeting, and we are now writing a joint publication. So that was a really very nice international group, very plenty of result.
I think that your country is a suitable place for a young scientist.
I think that my country is a very good place for forming, to develop young scientists. The university is very good, and I personally, I was abroad during my as a postdoc. So after my graduation and my PhD, I went abroad for 2 years. I've been at the Cell Molecular Biology Institute of Edinburgh in Scotland, and I have to say that the Italians had one of the best reputation to be accepted as a research assistant or as a postdoc. And so that's not my private case, but Italians are very good, and this means when they go abroad. So probably our professor at university don't treat us as good. We always are told that we can do better, of course, but when we go abroad, we are very good. So comparing to the other PhD student or to the other student, the Italians are good. So the scores are always very, very high. The problem is that the opportunity then to employ as a permanent researcher are not enough in Italy, so are not absolutely not enough to employ all young scientists. But as a formation, as a teaching information that we got from the university, the Italians are very good. I can tell for my personal experience that we are good.
And so, what about the opportunity after the studies, after the getting of
Yes, as I said before, we have got no many opportunities. So from student from a single lab, only 1 or 2 can follow the head of the laboratory and continue to do research in the same lab. But most of the students and PhD students, after the viva, so after defending the PhD, they have to move and they have to go abroad as a postdoc, which is good because the scientific experience must involve a period spent abroad, because it's important to learn other technique and to live in a foreign country. But it should be a choice and not a way, not the only way to be employed. Unfortunately, we don't have many PhD and postdoc positions in Italy.
What about the opportunity to work in a private company for a so skilled like scientist?
I think that there are opportunities, but even in not many in biology, because we perform basically basic science. But for a colleague of mine working at the pharmaceutical departments, probably they have more chances.
Yeah, in Italy.
In Italy, but not in the south. Most of the company are from Rome and in the north. And over the last 5 years, this opportunity decreased because of the general crisis. So it's not very. There are not very numerous opportunities to work in a private company.
Please, could you tell me something about compromises between work and private life? How your friends and your family react to your occupation, professional development, and so on?
I have to say that do research for a female. Sometimes it's thought that it's impossible because it's difficult to cope a private life, to cope the family, the children, with the life of a researcher, which is always 24 hours a day. But I have to say that at the beginning I was also scared to become a permanent researcher. In fact, when I was a student, I was in a lab, and I always thought that these leaders of the laboratory were really stressed about their work and they could not have any private life. But then I went to Edinburgh, as I told you earlier, to study for 2 years, and I had as example the leader group of my lab. She was a lady. She was a full professor, and she was leading a laboratory of more than 20 people. And she was the director of the whole building. And she came in the lab at 8:30 in the morning, go out at 5 in the evening. So she was just the quality of her work was very good. So when I was back to Italy, I thought that I could do a researcher. And so this example of life, it was very inspiring for me, because I thought that a researcher could be just a normal person with a special work, of course, but it was possible to cope private life with research. And so I got married. I got married before becoming a permanent researcher, but then I had 2 children. And I'm now happy people because I managed to cope the activity of my children, which are really a lot. But also, I can work sometimes at home at night time, so I can cope free time dedicated to my family and work. So I also spend a lot of time traveling. But my husband helped me, and I reached a very good compromise between private life and research activity. So I'm quite happy now. And what the second question was how the other people, so how the other people think of my job. Well, the personal, some people is just envious because I go traveling. But of course, when you go traveling for work, it's not a holiday. We always are 24 hours a day working and doing conferences, and then going for dinner with the colleague, which sometimes is very boring because you always talk about work. But the other people some other people consider my work very special, not just for traveling, but because we are at the edge of knowledge. So we are in a very nice field, very new field, and so they ask me, what is the gene therapy or some most advanced research.
also about your private life. Have you any hobby? How do you rest when you are at home? Can you tell me?
As everyone do. I mean, there is no any special thing. Of course, I spend most of my time with my kids. Well, my kids, and so I'm always involved with them. But
How old
as
are
a
them?
sorry,
How old are them?
they are 9 and 11. So I spend most of my time taking them to their sports activity and music, piano, and all this stuff. But I also, so basically, I don't rest.
Okay. That's right. About the opportunity of traveling for work, usually young scientists refuse to work abroad for better condition, and if yes, why?
My personal experience is not. Young people always likes to go abroad, not just for conferences, but also to attend for stages in labs. So basically, I have a PhD student now in Valentina, and she's just coming from 1 month spent in Innsbruck to do some electron microscopy studies. And also my postdoc, I always encourage them to go abroad, but they like to do it. They like to go abroad. Probably not to get a permanent job, but they like to learn new technique, to spend stages 1 year, 2 years, but then their dreams will be to come back and to have a permanent position in Italy.
Okay, so at least Italian students would prefer to spend the rest of their professional career in their country.
In their country, yes, of
Even
course, because of
if
the
they are
family,
valid.
girlfriend, they are in an age, 23, 28. Of course, their roots are here, but they are very well, not just fixed to be in Italy. They will prefer to have a permanent position in Italy, but they really like to go abroad, and they go. In fact, a good part of the European project I'm running now is to allow them to go abroad for 1 year or for small stages.
And how you will address young people to pursue a scientific career?
I think through guided visits to the institutes. It's very important for kids. Not too young, but let's say from the secondary school or the secondary school. So the age 10 or 13. So to see practically, to see something. So basically, I go to my son's school, and I take my hydra, my animals, and I show kids what is an animal and the experiment that can be done in a laboratory. Sometimes also kids, they want to see because it's difficult to understand through the books, but it's better to see practically. Even very simple experiment, but it's important. And so even to know my children like the pipette, the Epitaph, or they just like playing with the Pasteur pipette. There are very small things, but it makes kids to understand what is research, just with an idea. And if you can do some very simple experiment, it will last in their minds. It will really be a sign. And so I always go at my kids' school, and sometimes I invite their friends here in the lab to see, and they are fascinated, I have to say. There is no one kid that go and just make noise, but all of them are very interested. So.
Do you think that your area of research, or even research in general, is a reserved area for males?
We have to say, at least in Italy, is not reserved for males. In biology, probably there are more female as a student, but then the permanent position you find often professor male. So this is probably everywhere in Europe is the same. But my first answer is not an area reserved for males, but is equal.
And how your research is related with nanotechnologies?
Well, my research is, as I told you before, is nanotechnologies, and is related, in particular, in the project I'm running now, is the development of new nanotools for drug delivery, and in particular for gene therapy. What we are developing now is a multifunctional nanoparticles, basically a gold core which carries on the surface many active molecules. And among these active molecules there are siRNA, which is a sort of molecule which can interfere with the gene transcription. So basically, if one cell express a tumoral gene, we can put these nanoparticles into this cell, and these nanoparticles can release molecules which can block the expression of these cancerogenous gene. So that's the main object of the project. So basically I work with nanoparticles, and my research is related to the nanotechnologies because I test in animals nanotools. Nanotools, so are nano device, are functional nanoparticles.
About nanotechnology, when do you think this word nanotechnology should be introduced to young people? How
I
much
think
they have age?
The ages should be from 10, 11 onwards.
For first time?
Yes, I have the example of my son, and when they started at the school to study the sizes, let's say the meter, and they go down to the millimeter or the micron, at this stage the concept of nano can be introduced, in my point of view, because they can really understand how small is a nano. So just comparing the different sizes, and I think that is the best age to introduce this concept. If they are younger, they just realize the millimeter, but to go further down is not impossible, of course, but it will be harder for most of the kids.
The last question, please. What's the main international cooperation model among science institutions in other countries in your work?
Well, the most used way of international cooperation is a joint project between different countries, and the most popular and are the European project under the framework, under the 7, at the moment is the 7 work program. There are also other kind of cooperation, and there are the accordi bilaterali, means the joint collaboration, and this means that there is not the funding agency is not Europe, but is a law between two legal entities, so between two countries. So at the moment I have a joint cooperation project between Italy and Israel, but there are also between Italy and Spain, so there are the two governments that reserve some money to reinforce the collaboration just between two countries.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
It was my
meeting,
pleasure.
and my wishes for your work.
Thank you very much.